Look, I can't help but think that now might be a good time for a little fire and ice. Please
No,
do not
there is
know.
never a good time for fire and ice.
What happens when you mix fire and ice?
Warm water, baby.
It's bubbling, baby. Warm water. Warm water.
Mike Tipton, Brandon the Iceman Cone, hanging out with you over here at the Just the Tip Production Studios. I got my guy David Halpern hanging out with us as well. A little different than what we were expecting because we were expecting to get over at iHeart today. However, a little bit of issues, no big deal. We are still here providing you with, I don't want to say expert content, but it's content. Out of all the content there is, this is some of it.
Hey, at least it's better than two schmucks coming on the radio on a Saturday. But absolutely. I got to say, though, before I say any other content or thing in general, I have to wish my dear buddy a very happy 40th birthday. Welcome to the 40s Club. Your vision is already decreasing and getting worse because you can't see now. 39 was much better. But you know what? Happy 40th birthday. Ain't got nothing but love for you and many, many more, my friend.
I cannot believe that David is turning 40 today. That is awesome for you, buddy. You don't look a day over 25. I'll tell you that much. But thank you, Brandon. Thank you for that. Methuselah. That's what we got here for.
He helped build the pyramids.
Yeah, he did. Okay, so again, we're hoping that maybe next week we'll be able to get Fire and Ice on air over at iHeart. But for now, we're happy being over here. The studio is great. Dave has busted his ass to make sure we sound good, we look good. I mean, the ambiance here, it feels like an actual studio. No one would know that this is just some random ass office in an office building somewhere. We have really done a good job here. And of course, if you're interested in podcasting, this is the place to come to. Contact me. We'll do all the back end work for you. People don't realize this, Brandon, until, a lot of people ask me about podcasts, right? Like, what is it that I can do to start a podcast? And the first thing I tell them is you better have patience and you better have a little bit of money that you're willing to spend because all this stuff ain't cheap.
Yeah.
And luckily we got Dave who finds an easy way to just build things that I think he built one of these like contraptions we have here for our microphones out of bubble gum and duct tape. And it's just great to see. He's like the MacGyver of engineers.
Oh yeah, he's sharp. And this is, look, I've worked in a lot of studios before, but to me, it's a tiny, cool studio. Like you all the things that you would see at any other studio or radio station you have here. And of course, we're lucky to have Daver. And this is really something, a lot of doodads and whistles and bells over here. That's for sure.
It's much better than your normal podcast studio. But like I tell people all the time, that stuff adds up. Those prices add up. Then, of course, you got to worry about the monthly subscriptions for the service fees, for audition, for editing your audio, for any of the stuff like that. Let us handle all that work for you. We'll do all the back end stuff for you. All you got to do is show up and talk. You cannot beat that offer. And of course, just contact us if you want to be a part of the network here. You want to get your own podcast started as well. But Brandon, enough of that stuff. The Super Bowl happened. And on this show, I believe twice, I said that I wanted the San Francisco 49ers to lose in the most heartbreaking way possible. I did not see the slow death by 1,000 cuts that they had to endure in overtime. Only the second overtime game in the history of the NFL, of the Super Bowl, rather.
Yeah.
Only the second one. San Francisco goes down. They get the ball first in overtime. They kick a field goal. They're up by 3. That's a good position to be in for most of the time.
Yep.
Unless you're going up against Patrick Mahomes. And then Patrick Mahomes slowly and methodically, it was almost brutal watching this happen in person. Moves the ball down the field and then scores a game-winning touchdown. And I don't know if you were freaking out at first the way I was before Tony Romo explained it to us. I was like, call a timeout. There's 3 seconds left. What are we doing?
Right.
Because I didn't know the overtime rules.
A lot of people didn't.
What was your thought about that game as Kansas City is able to ultimately win their second championship in a row?
Well, Kansas City is who we thought they were in a good way, though. They are as good as it gets. They are one of the clutchest teams in NFL history because they have probably the clutchest player in NFL history in Mahomes. There is no act that guy cannot perform. He is the ultimate magician of professional football. There is no lead that's safe against them. And no matter how good your defense is, no matter how good you were in the regular season, no matter how great you were in certain instances in general, it really doesn't matter because no insurmountable lead is insurmountable against a team with number 15 on it. And again, their defense continued to do what they do best, and that's cause turnovers, especially at the most unideal time for San Francisco. The Niners really had no excuse for losing that game other than they're the Niners, and they crumble like a clay statue in the Super Bowl the last decade, unfortunately, taking nothing away from what they've done, which has been miraculous and amazing nowadays. But with that said, I just feel that it was, again, a story, a fairy tale ending for a team in terms of that always gets it done, always finds a way. Shanahan was outcoached yet again in a Super Bowl. Okay, Shanahan cannot win the big game. Maybe he will one day. I mean, he still has a good squad in San Francisco, but clearly he played the overtime wrong. And granted, it's not something we've seen often because this is the first time we saw an overtime like this in the NFL postseason, but you have to be better than that. You have to be smarter than that. And you have to know that, yes, your defense is still gassed. And yes, you're probably going to give up at least some points, but ultimately, maybe you give up 3 and then the ball is completely in your court. I'm sorry, but that was an unacceptable decision to take the ball first. And it's all hindsight. But, I mean, you just have to be able to play it better in overtime.
So as far as the decision goes to take the ball first in overtime, I don't blame him because, like you said, Kansas City had just moved the ball down their throat to tie that game. Like Kansas City had, 11 plays in less than 2 minutes that they were able to go and gash this defense. So if you gave the ball back to Kansas City right out the gate, they were more than likely going to get a touchdown because that defense, there's no way that defense was going to be able to withstand another long drive from Kansas City. Hell, we saw it after San Francisco had a long drive to start overtime. People forget that. San Francisco had the ball for 7.5 minutes to start that overtime to kick that field goal. The thing for me, and I know that people are always questioning Shanahan, okay, like you take the opening kickoff in overtime, right? You kick the field goal in overtime. And everyone's saying, don't kick the field goal, go for the touchdown. You're at 4th and goal, go for the touchdown, go for the touchdown, go for the touchdown. If they miss and they don't get that touchdown, because Kansas City's defense has a thing about showing up when they need to, and people need to remember this. During this entire postseason, Kansas City's defense in the second half gave up an average of 3 points. Mm-hmm. But like their defense in the second half was just phenomenal in all of their playoff games. And look at the teams they went up against. Miami, Buffalo, Baltimore, San Francisco. All of them have high-powered offenses that they would be able to get some points on, held to 3 points on average in the second half. Kansas City was going to score no matter what because San Francisco's defense, we saw it. I don't know if you felt the same way as I did, Brandon, but at halftime it was like, man, San Francisco should probably be up by more than a touchdown. But San Francisco should be dominating this game by how it's going, and it played into Kansas City's hands. The second half was just a display of the Kansas City Chiefs running the ball directly down the throats of the San Francisco 49ers. And then whenever they didn't run the ball, it was Patrick Mahomes with all that magic that he has getting them points. I feel like you have to take any points you can at that point because if not, you're giving Patrick Mahomes 40 yards to kick a field goal and win the Super Bowl.
Well, no, you absolutely positively have to take points. The fact that they didn't get in the end zone after taking up more than half of the quarter was a travesty for them because they were moving the ball. But again, Shanahan deviated away from what had been working, and that's McCaffrey and the run. And they got within 5 yards of scoring a touchdown, and then 3rd and goal, and boom, there comes the defender, right in his space, and that's that. Then they have to kick the field goal. They absolutely, I'm not saying, and I'm not disregarding the fact that, yes, you have to take any points you can get because you just can't gamble and then give them the ball back and expect, well, our defense is just going to stop them after we haven't stopped them in the last 4 possessions. And certainly without all that said, though, whenever you can get a lead, any lead is nice in the Super Bowl. But yes, there were many squandered opportunities where you just felt like, hey, you know what? This is a 7-point lead. It's a 10-point lead. Hey, man, a 10-point lead wasn't safe in 2019, right? And they came back in the fourth quarter and took care of business. But then again, it seems like nobody can put this team away in a Super Bowl. That's the thing about this team is that no matter what the lead, no matter what the circumstances, just give them the ball and have them take care of business in the end. And again, I just like what Andy Reid does. I like the plays. I like the decisions. As clutch as it gets, I mean, you just can't ask for a better team right now the way it's going.
Kyle Shanahan has been to 3 Super Bowls as a coach, 2 as a head coach, 1 as an offensive coordinator, and his teams have given up a total, Brandon, of 45 points in lead in the Super Bowl. This guy needs to win a Super Bowl at some point because that's the shittiest legacy someone can have. Like the Buffalo Bills making it to 4 straight Super Bowls, not being able to win is not as bad as blowing a total of 45 points in 3 Super Bowls. You're blowing 15 points on average in each of these Super Bowls. And that's got to be something that's going to be playing in his head. That's got to be something that the teams are going to be looking that players are going to be looking at as well. Like, yeah, we could get there, but you got 3 Super Bowls now. That's not a small sample size of this guy blowing leads.
Yeah. No, and here's the thing though, is that everybody needs to remember. You go back to that 28-3 lead they had against New England back several years ago, and part of the reason why they lost that game is because they also deviated away from the run. When he was the offensive coordinator there, he had 2 great running backs. Freeman had his breakout season that year, and they then decided to not milk the clock, and then they ended up goofing and giving Brady the victory in overtime, ironically enough. And to me, similar thing here is that McCaffrey was doing what he did. I mean, he was running relatively well against Kansas City's great defense, and yet they completely went away from that as well, especially late in the fourth quarter and potentially even in overtime. So, I mean, there's little things you have to question. And yes, we're armchair coaches, and we're not in that particular situation. But if you're 0-3 in a Super Bowl, you're 0-3 for a reason. And that's the bottom line. That's what you really need to consider here.
The San Francisco 49ers, though, are set up very well to come back, at least make one more run at the Super Bowl. Because let's face it, they are, without a shadow of a doubt, the cream of the crop when it comes to the NFC.
Not so fast. I mean, right now they're pretty damn good, but I think the NFC is going to be better next year. And I say that, and I get the look, and I love that look, especially on your 40th birthday, just because I think Detroit's still going to be good. I think Green Bay is going to be improved. I think Chicago, if they take the kid from USC, which it's looking like they are, and they get a bunch of things for him from maybe Washington or whatever, they get rid of Fields, whatever is what I'm thinking, they could be a lot better. Dallas, of course, is Dallas. I don't think it's going to be as easy a road next year for San Francisco. And I beg to differ as to say, are they the team to beat in the NFC? Yeah, they're pretty damn good. And yeah, right now, maybe by a nose, but there's a lot of competition coming up. And Philadelphia will be better again. I just think there's a lot of teams that could give them a run for their money next year.
The only reason why, and again, it pains me as a Cowboys fan to say that San Francisco is the cream of the crop, the only reason why I would even utter those words is because I look at that team. They didn't play their best in the playoffs.
Sure.
They made it to the Super Bowl not playing their best in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
Not playing their best. They had a 10-point lead at one point in the Super Bowl. Yes, they blew it. Yes, they ultimately lost. But they were in these games not playing their best.
Right.
It makes me think, and again, like it's we all have that person, right? That friend in our life, like, man, they had so much potential and they never reached that potential, right? Is this going to be the legacy of the San Francisco 49ers? I don't think so. Like, they've got to find some way. Of course, the thing that benefits them the most is the fact that their quarterback is so cheap.
Oh, yeah. He cost them
But
pennies
if
on the dollar.
Brock Purdy decides he wants to hold out because he deserves a payday.
Yes, he
Let's
does.
say he got that team to the
Making
NFC
nothing,
Championship.
making nothing.
He got them to a Super Bowl. It wasn't his fault they lost. He did what he needed to do as Brock Purdy to make sure it wasn't a great game. It wasn't a bad game.
Sure.
They could not blame him, right? And in the playoffs, we saw him make some throws.
Mhm.
So unless he holds out and starts demanding more money and then puts them in a stranglehold as a player, then maybe they've got some issues there. But they're under the cap, which means they can go out and sign some more guys. They can address the linebacking core or the interior of that defensive line because they were getting gashed straight up the middle. They seem like the team to me, they're not strangled by the salary cap the way the Cowboys are. They're not strangled by bad contracts the way that Philadelphia is. Detroit, I'll give you that. Green Bay, I'll give you that. But they're going to beat the dog shit out of each other because they're in the same division. So to me, it's like San Francisco, there's no one in the NFC West that I'm scared of.
Not really.
Maybe the Rams, but I feel like they
The Rams are
overachieved.
definitely better, you know.
They overachieved this year,
They
though.
did all right. I mean, they have a lot of weapons next year. I just feel that the one thing that San Francisco doesn't have at this point is confidence. I mean, that's a big one
Yeah.
because you keep getting close, and close counts and horseshoes and hand grenades, and you either lose in the NFC title game or you lose in the Super Bowl. But I mean, certainly there's like, hey, at least we made it there. But you can't tell that to these guys. At least you made it there, but you still lost again and saw the other team, celebrate with the confetti, right? That's the biggest thing, is that it's so disheartening, and every team is one injury away from losing their season. And that's the biggest problem with the NFL. And again, like I said, I'll say it again, there's always going to be a team that comes out. How about Tampa Bay? I mean, they could be much better next year. There's always going to be a surprise team that you didn't expect that comes out of the woodwork, and you're like, well, okay, I didn't see that coming. But I just feel that
I think that team this year was Kansas City. As sacrilegious as that sounds.
I mean, where they though? I mean, only because of the lack of receivers. Though.
How many times did you write them off during this playoff?
We wrote them off a lot,
we?
Especially when they lost.
We?
Especially when they lost to Oakland on Christmas Day, right?
Yeah, so for me, it was again like I look at them as a zombie. They're going to come back no matter what. But nobody would have thought the way the season went down that the Kansas City Chiefs were going to win the Super Bowl, right?
It didn't seem likely.
Like the diehard Chiefs fans, maybe they're like, yeah, of course. But even there, as much as I love Patrick Mahomes, my confidence was wavering in it, right? Like they've got no receivers. And then out of nowhere in the playoffs, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who couldn't hold on to a pass, is making amazing catches all throughout the rest of the season.
You only have to be great when it matters most. That's it.
Flip the switch.
You only have to be great when it matters the most, and that's exactly what they did. Their defense was always solid, but their defense really stepped up the last several games.
This is the thing that I wanted to ask you, right? Like, I gave you that stat. In the entire run of the playoffs, I had those 4 playoff games, averaging giving up 3 points in the second half of these playoff games. If you look at those scores, it wasn't like any of these games were shootouts.
Sure.
These were nasty, hard-nosed type
close
football.
Games, all close games.
This is an all-time great defense if their quarterback isn't Patrick Mahomes.
Absolutely.
And they're remembered as an all-time great defense if their quarterback isn't Patrick Mahomes. They just so happen to play with Patrick Mahomes as their quarterback, and we're going to forget how great this defense was.
It was unbelievable. They won the Baltimore game. They literally single-handedly won the Baltimore game. I mean, if I tell you a team goes through Miami, Buffalo, Baltimore, and San Francisco, 4 games, dude. 4 games. I mean, you think about how hard it is to win 4 consecutive games in the regular season, much or less at the end of the year when you're all banged up, everybody's geschluffed, everybody's tired, everybody's ready for the off season. And what do? You just continue to go on the most epic run, and because Patrick Mahomes, best game manager you could possibly ask for. His only interception comes in the Super Bowl, and that was just one, right? Against, a creme de la creme defense like San Francisco. But again, the greatest teams of all time are just simply great when they have to be. And when do you have to be the greatest? When January and February hit. The rest of the season is absolutely meaningless, and you know it as well as I do.
Well, and that was the thing that I was getting dragged for over the week, because as soon as the Super Bowl ends, I put out there, I would much rather go 0-17 than to lose in that fashion in the Super Bowl, to lose in overtime, to lose the way that the Tennessee Titans did against the Rams that first time, that 1 yard stretching out. I get it. You're there. At least you made it there. Congratulations. You became the answer to a trivia question, right? But at the end of the day, you all go home with an L. There's only one team that can win.
No one remembers the losers, unfortunately.
And the toll it takes on your body, the toll it takes on you mentally to go through all of that to get to that point in the season. And then again, like I said, the way that they lost, I wanted them to lose that way, San Francisco. I wanted it to be heartbreaking. I think I stopped short of saying I want all their fans to die sad, right? Like I was at that point in time in my life, because I don't want that team to win a Super Bowl before the Cowboys do. But, man, that was heartbreaking to watch, because you knew what was going to happen. Patrick Mahomes, again, if it had been like a quick strike 75-yard touchdown, no biggie. This was a slow, methodical 7.5-minute drive where they looked like they were not panicked at all. Like they knew they were going to score a touchdown on this drive.
Hard third downs.
Every third down.
It's not like they were doing. It's just picture-perfect football.
For as dominant as San Francisco was in the first half of that game defensively, Kansas City was equally as dominant on all facets of that game.
The more important half, too.
The most important half. And then in overtime, just because we can do it, let's just milk this clock down. Let's make everybody at home stress out, because we're all thinking, is it double overtime? Do they keep the ball? How does this end?
Everyone's trying to figure it out, right?
Thank God for Romo. And Romo's been put through the burner. I don't know how this happened. But I thought Romo did a pretty decent job of explaining. Yeah, the clock just rolls over. It's like we go to
because
second
he's
quarter.
like, they don't have to call a timeout. It's not going to end. It's not going to end because they get the possession regardless. And he was explaining it, and then I think that he, it was funny because it was almost a little confusing because everybody that I was watching the game with was like, oh, well, shit, hurry up, hurry up because it's going to end and you're going to lose out. I was like, no, it's going to another overtime. But again, we were all confused because we had never seen anything like that before, and we're just remembering, the Buffalo KC game in the divisional round a couple of years ago. But nevertheless, the way they made it now is, to me, so much better than it ever was before. It's more similar to college now.
It still feels like a sudden death overtime.
It does. Well, in the respect that, and that's the thing that I really like, though, is even if San Francisco had scored a touchdown, they would have still, KC had the chance to match them with a touchdown.
I like the balls that Kansas City had when they were like, it doesn't matter if you guys score a touchdown and kick the extra point. We're going to score a touchdown. We're going to go for two.
And that's the thing. That's what you have to do, right? You have to go for two because the next score wins. So it's like, excuse me, sorry, right here.
We're both dying.
Aha!
Yeah, look at that cough button.
Look at that shtick. Anything you can do, I can do better. And you know exactly what they would have done. They would have gone for two, probably gotten it, found Kelsey, who was quiet, and he was quieter.
He had 9 catches for 92 yards.
That's
Go ahead and take
good,
a drink of water.
Yeah, thank you.
I can tell you are struggling right now. I was the same way. Dave, if you can hear us, can you please bring us a bottle of water for the two of us? I don't know what it is. Maybe there's some allergies going on today.
I think it's your birthday, and I'm so excited.
I think that's what maybe. You know what? I think I have the cure for what's going to help us out.
Oh yeah,
there's a bottle that you brought me.
Because you're my buddy.
Yeah, that'll get rid of that'll cure what ails you. Thank you so much, Dave.
I appreciate it.
Dave, a jack of all trades, our literal savior.
We love him. He's our knight in shining armor.
Yes.
But no, I mean, I say yes. He did well, but he didn't score. But he did. Kelsey did.
9 catches for 92 yards.
That's pretty good. That's not bad.
A quiet
good stat.
A quiet 9 catches.
But anyways, he probably would have got the 2-point conversion. Yeah. That would have been that, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to ask you this because you and I are both educators, right? And I was asked by one of the students, how do I feel about the assault that Travis Kelce perpetrated against Andy Reid?
Huh.
And I sat there and I thought to myself,
that's a good question, right?
That's not an assault. Like that's football. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, that's just football. It's the heated moment in the biggest game. Another thing Romo got, ran over the coals for was him saying, this is for the Super Bowl. Yeah, all of the plays in there are for the Super Bowl. It was kind of like Dan Fouts from The Water Boy. This is the last game of the year. You can't hold anything back now, Jim. Right. That was my Tony Romo impersonation. I know
you've had better. I guess you've had worse.
But I'm sitting here and thinking to myself, that's just the heat of the moment, man. That's not an assault.
What made it bad was that poor Andy Reid, he's long in the tooth, took a little stumble, and I didn't want to see Andy fall because he seems just like a great guy and everybody loves him here because of the UTEP ties and whatnot. And
can we get over that?
Well, it's like the 66 championship. You never forget it,
He didn't win anything here.
I know, but he was under Stahl and, whatever. But it was kind of cool that he was here.
40 years ago.
Considering that he's become one of the greatest coaches in NFL history. No,
I was in diapers.
You were. So was I. Well, no, I'm 5 years old. I hope I wasn't in diapers. But anyways, I mean, you never know. But no, all I can say is that it's one of those things where, yes, it doesn't look good, but it is football. And, it comes down to they're so physical with each other. And I don't think either one of them really meant any, well, especially Travis Kelce, meant any harsh words or was potentially trying to, catch Andy Reid where he took a little stumble. He's like, oh shit, I better help the old man so he doesn't fall, right? And hurt himself. But I feel that people were overreacting as usual, and it really was heat of the moment shtick.
How bad would it have been if Andy Reid had taken the fall there? Because, we saw it whenever he won, like at the end of the game, he'd go and he's hanging out with Chris Jones. They're both on the floor of the field, and Andy Reid's having a time getting back up. It would not have been Andy Reid, takes a stumble and then pops back up. It would have been a slow, painful watch to watch that walrus get back up on its feet.
It would have been tough. He's all, I am the Eggman. I am the walrus. Yeah, he's a big fella. He's, big fella falls, it's not easy to get them up. So yeah, I mean, and you know, like I said, it would have sucked, but thank God it didn't happen. Thank God he just kind of took a little step here to his right, and everything was good after that. And
Yeah.
I mean, Travis did have a point. You know, they took him out, and they fumbled the ball, right? So it was like, hey, without him there, it was a different situation. He got pissed off, and rightfully so, I guess.
And I think about this, right? Like anytime we hear anything in sports, the pantheon of sports, you know, the gospel of sports is you want those guys on your team that want the ball.
Sure.
That's a guy that wanted the ball. He was frustrated. I don't know if you saw it the way that I did. It looked kind of dirty there at the very beginning. The 49ers just celebrating everything. Obviously, the wind got out of their sails whenever Greenlaw got hurt, rupturing his Achilles, trying to run back onto the field. You talk about the worst possible time for that.
That's terrible.
And that was, to me, where Kansas City said, okay, now that he's not there, run the ball down their throat.
Yeah. What a terrible loss for them.
And to me, it's like you always want those guys that want the ball. And Travis Kelce looks to me like the guy, like the legitimate guy, like, I want the ball. I need to be in the game. And I can see why the frustrations would be there.
No doubt. I mean, you want to be in there on every single play. And if you're not there on every play, you're wondering why you're not there on every play, considering the productivity.
Are you mad at me?
Yeah. It's like, what did I do? You know, like, why aren't I there even as a decoy or to block? You know what I mean? There has to be a role for me on every play, and it's the Super Bowl, like you said. So, you know, again, the emotions are so high. I mean, they're never going to be higher than they are for the Super Bowl. And he is just a very emotional player, and he wears his them on the sleeve ultimately. So I mean, I don't hate him for getting pissed off.
No.
You know, obviously I was a little worried about old man Andy, but thank God he turned out to be okay, because I think he ate a cheeseburger at the end of the night.
Andy Reid eating a cheeseburger?
No, not him.
No way at all. I don't believe that one bit, Brandon. Once again, we are Fire and Ice, Brandon the Iceman Cone, Mike Tipton hanging out over here at the Just the Tip studio. Hopefully next week we will be on air over on Fox Sports 1380. We will keep everybody posted about that as we move forward. But Brandon, I wanted to change things up just a little bit here. Obviously, we've spoken about the Super Bowl. We can go ad nauseum on this, right? Like we can just keep going over and over and over, but the season is done.
It is.
Now let's look at the best part of what I think is the best part of the NFL season, the first opening of free agency. We're about to get to there. We're going to have the combine in a couple of weeks, and then in April, we're going to have the draft, and hopefully we will be there at the draft in Detroit as well. But Brandon, the one thing that I really wanted to talk about was let's look at some of the people that are going to be out there that are free agents. And I'm looking at that running back class because to me, that's what my team, the Dallas Cowboys, they need something like that. Dallas Cowboys and Tony Pollard, he's on this list of running backs. But you got Derrick Henry, you got Saquon Barkley, you got Josh Jacobs, and you got Austin Eckler on this list. Which one of those names would entice you as a Dallas Cowboys fan? And I think would entice everybody as a fan of their team that we need to go out and get this guy.
Well, I mean, I still feel that Henry is just that physical running back that they would fit in well with their system. And that's the thing about Derrick Henry is that, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Aren't you clever? Look at that. I just feel that Derrick Henry is still probably maybe 2 years left. And I feel he could be that absolute workhorse that they need. I'd be concerned about Eckler because of his injury history, Barkley's injury history. But when Barkley's healthy, he's without a doubt, one of the best running backs in the NFL. But as of now, instead of keeping Pollard, because he is a free agent, you have to pay the man. I don't think he had an amazing season. He didn't have a terrible season. He was shy of 1,000 yards. And
he was one of 6 running backs this year that got over 1,000 yards. Running backs getting 1,000 yards it's not something that happens anymore.
No.
So it's because most people have, or most teams rather, have that dual running back system.
Right.
But you're right. Like Derrick Henry's a beast. He's an absolute monster.
If you really want to beef up your team and make them more universal than they've been in a long time, then you go after Derrick Henry. You hit the home run. Now, granted, they didn't hire Vrabel as their defensive coordinator, which I'm okay with. I mean, I think Vrabel's going to be a head coach again soon. Maybe he takes a year off. Who knows? Or someone picks him up late in the offseason. But I still feel with Zimmer, I don't mind that fit of Zimmer. I like Zimmer. I always like what he did in Minnesota. But I mean, honest to God, if you have an opportunity to go after a Derrick Henry and you have the money to spend some cheddar on a premier elite running back, that to me would fit in very well in that system. And he's become a better pass catching back in the last couple of years. I think Dak would absolutely love to have him there. If they're serious about winning the Super Bowl next year, which they say they are, but who knows with them, then you go after Derrick Henry, in my opinion. Try and get him.
I feel like that's adding a lot more to like the fodder of the Dallas Cowboys legend of, oh yeah, next year's going to be our year.
Of course,
right. So whenever Jerry Jones comes out and is like, we're all in next year, it's like, oh God, we're going to be getting that now,
aren't we? It never fails. But I mean,
but yeah, like and the only thing that I worry about with Derrick Henry would be the price tag again, because the Dallas Cowboys are kind of handcuffed when it comes to salary cap. But you're right. Like I don't find a need to go out and even franchise tag Tony Pollard.
Sure, let him go.
Yeah,
I mean he's good, but he's not great. He's not Derrick Henry. I let him go, free up the space.
Well, and we saw like his best years came when he was the second back.
Absolutely,
he wasn't like the premier
and
back.
He was never that premier goal line back, and Derrick Henry is that premier goal line back. And I really do feel he'd fit in well in McCarthy's system. I do.
Well, yeah,
you know what I mean.
I mean, if it doesn't matter what your system is, if you can't find a place for Derrick Henry, you're doing it wrong.
Yes, absolutely. No, you're right. No, absolutely. And again, he brings the aspect of another receiver. Take some pressure off Lamb, because Lamb's going to get paid. Lamb's going to, especially after the year he had, he's going to be, next year potential top 1 or 2 receiver in the NFL, other than Tyreek Hill. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, you need to continue to bolster the receiving core as well with the Cowboys to get better in that respect too.
And that was something that I was going to question as well. So Derrick Henry, obviously the biggest name free agent when it comes to running backs. Mike Evans from Tampa Bay, 10 straight years of 1,000 yards receiving, is also one of those names that is out there. The one thing that I think the Dallas Cowboys really could have had was a second receiver step up. I know you like Brandon Cooks.
He's decent.
I know you liked a couple of other guys, but I always look at Cook as like the third receiver on a championship team. If he's your number 2 or your number 1, you got problems. So to me, why not make a play, because this is a passing league, and Dak had some of his best years when it was Cooper and Lamb. Go out and get Mike Evans, who's going to want to win a Super Bowl. And I think the Cowboys, if they get someone like a Mike Evans with that defense, with the way this team is, that could be one of those players that gets them over the hump, because also he's won a Super Bowl recently and he can hold that team accountable to, this is what a champion looks like.
Another reason why I want to see how serious they truly are in this offseason. If they make a big push for a good B running back a B receiver to Lamb, and of course a premier running back, even if it's not Henry, even if it's someone else that's elite, then I'm going to be saying that, this team is really trying to do. They're trying to make the offseason move to where, again, you look at these teams that make these runs that go to the Super Bowl ultimately, it's because they made 1 or 2 big acquisitions in the offseason. They did what was necessary. They were a smart business team in the offseason. Is Dallas going to be that team and have some chutzpah, or are they going to continue to be the team that we've gotten used to the last who knows how many years?
I'm fairly positive they're going to be the team that we've gotten used to over the last couple of years because of the Dallas Cowboys.
They are who we think they are.
Yeah, so I mean that's obviously the way it's going to be. Speaking of them, they hire Mike Zimmer. You mentioned that as their defensive coordinator. They also bring in a couple of people to help out on the defensive line, bringing in defensive line coach, assistant coach Greg Ellis, who played with the Cowboys for a number of seasons as well. I like seeing that they're addressing some issues on defense, but I don't think it was necessarily the defensive line that was the issue for the Dallas Cowboys issue.
I don't. I think their secondary struggled, and that's partly due to the fact that Diggs was out early in the season for the most part, and that really took and gave opposition one good side to take away the Bly. He took away one side in general. I think that again they were vulnerable with their linebacking core, their DBs, and the defensive line was great, obviously with Micah Parsons. Albeit though, a defensive line can always be better. That's my philosophy. You can always beef that up and make them even better and more effective with rushing the quarterback rather and causing pressure. So, but it was not their weakness. No, it was not their weakness on defense.
So as you know, I'm a big NBA All-Star Weekend fan. They had the NBA Celebrity Game yesterday. Micah Parsons winds up being the MVP. That Dallas Cowboys defensive end winds up being the MVP of this thing, scoring 31 points, even gets a couple of dunks in there. The guy is just an absolute monster. And that's great as Dallas Cowboys fans that he's on our team. and he seems all in on this team as well.
Oh, for sure. For sure. He is all in on this team. He's the best defensive player in the game today. I mean, he's not quite Lawrence Taylor, obviously. There's only one LT, but he's very good. He's very good. And if you're going to have a defensive player like that, you want him to be on your team. Did I hear he sent your boy Stephen A to the hospital? That's what I heard.
He might have.
That's because he was practicing or something. He hurt his ankle, when he was. That's what I heard.
Well, whenever you're 9,000 years old, like Stephen A. Smith is, you probably shouldn't be out there. And honestly, if I'm like Micah Parsons or if I'm any of these players and Stephen A. Smith is like on a basketball court and he's been talking that shit the whole time, I'm coming after him, man. Like I don't care who you are.
You're saying he deserved it.
More than likely.
He's not going to like that if he hears.
I mean, you stoke the fire, it's gonna happen.
He does. He creates a few fires.
Yeah. So I mean, whenever things like that happen, it's gonna come your way. Something that I wanted to talk about as well, Brandon. We're coming to the end of the NCAA basketball season, right? Like now that the Super Bowl is over, some of these other sports are actually going to get a little bit of love, right? And it seems like we've forgotten about a whole bunch of things. I'm a Carolina Tar Heels fan. I'm a Texas Tech basketball fan as well. I love watching these teams play. I didn't even realize that the Carolina Tar Heels were the number 3 team in the
they're having a great year so far. I mean,
and I can't name anybody on that team.
No, it'd be hard, But I will say that right now, and it's so hard to repeat, but UConn is really as good as it gets. I mean, the run they made last year, the fact that Newton's back again and playing amazing, one of the top players in the country, should be drafted in the offseason now, in the draft, since he's stayed another year. That was a good move on his part, not a bad move at all. I just feel that is, to me, the best team in college basketball. And of course, you're going to have the Houstons and, but to me, Houston seems like they're always fool's gold when the tournaments are. Illinois, same thing. I mean, it's going to be for Kansas. I mean, look, you're going to have your usual suspects, right? Carolina could make a big push, could make it to the Elite. Texas has kind of been disappointing, though. They with Terry's second year at the helm, they haven't been nearly as good as they were, but growing pains, and it's hard to, it's hard to have a program and make them completely your program. Anything you want to say, it still wasn't his program last year, and they did well, but now it's his program, and now is a true test to see where you get that team.
And we as people here in El Paso, where Rodney Terry left unceremoniously, just decided one day, I'd rather go be an assistant coach in the Big 12. I kind of don't blame him, but we know like that system might not necessarily work. It might be something very intriguing to see how this is going to play out, because even Texas basketball expects championships.
Absolutely. And there's a big difference between an assistant coach and a head coach.
And the guy.
Yeah. And again, last year, you waited to the Elite Eight, had a hell of a team. And he did a good job. Look, I take nothing away from him, but now this is completely, like I said, his squad. You bring in your own recruits, and we'll see what happens. But they have had some, suspect losses this year, and Texas Tech has been certainly much better. They beat them, But yeah, there's a lot of good teams. I mean, the March Madness is fun. It's here before you know it. I know UTEP has been extremely disappointing again. They've done, and congratulations to UTEP women's basketball. Keith Adams got her 500th career win in the comeback against Western Kentucky. What a feat. I'm glad she did it here rather than when she was at Wichita State. It was nice to see.
It feels like with Keitha being back here, and we'll get to this a little bit later, but it feels like with her being back here, this is where she should be.
Absolutely.
This is where those milestones.
She'll retire.
Yeah.
And again, she's playing with other people's players. It's still the previous administration's team and all that. But now give her another year, and I think she'll build the program up to where she had it.
Yeah. And this is what I wanted to talk about with the NCAA, right? Because obviously the March Madness is coming up. It's right around the corner. To me, that's the most fun that you can have as far as like any of these playoff tournaments are, because there's so many upsets.
Sure.
There's all these different storylines. Who was in the Final Four last year? I know it was like FIU.
FAU. UConn.
Was Miami?
I don't think it was Miami. Trying to think, there was one.
San Diego State,
yeah. So it was like a Mountain West school, a CUSA school, UConn, and then FAU lost at the buzzer to make it to the championship round. Remember that?
Yeah.
Or else they would have played UConn. So it was a good Final Four.
And in most other sports, you don't get those stories. That's what I love about NCAA basketball. However, this came up over the week. They're thinking of expanding again.
Well, what's new?
Expanding the tournament
More
from
money.
from 68 teams to 72 teams.
Oh, I mean,
At this
we'll make it
point,
100 teams.
I was gonna say, why not just have every D1 school in it? I guess there's 300 of them, so why not 100, right?
I
Like,
mean,
let's make it
100
something.
Sounds good to me. You know, I mean, I'm never against expanding, and I say this because of this particular reason. Okay, if you're in the CUSA, which is a garbage conference, let's call a spade a spade. There's no way in hell that you'll make it unless you win your conference, right?
Yeah.
So it gives teams a less notoriety, the smaller conferences, the actual chance of, you know, I win my regular season tournament, I make it. I don't win the postseason tournament, right? So if you want to expand it to 70 something, you know, allow those teams that there's always teams that get screwed. There's always those last four out that deserve to be in, but they don't get in. So if you want to expand it by 5 or 6 or 7, I'm okay with it. Don't make it 100, but stick 70s, whatever, because there's always going to be teams that get the shit into the stick, and you know it as well as I do.
But I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, if we're trying to protect the teams that get the shit into the stick, then why not just expand it so all 300, however, and then we start the tournament in February, and that could be like
We start in January. There's
Yeah.
no conference play anymore.
we can call it like February Fantasy, and then go into the March
Ooh, that
Madness,
sounds fun.
and it's going to end in like April, so we'll call it April Armageddon.
I don't know. The
Right,
more
like-
the merrier. You know, because I'll tell you what, the expansion was at 64, 68, right?
It was 64 to
It then
60.
had the first 4.
Hmm.
And how many first 4 teams? There's been like at least 2 that have made to the final 4 within the I remember Syracuse, I think, did it one year. There was another team that was an obscure team. Google it if you don't believe me. And you're giving me that look that I look forward to.
Well, no, like I'm
There's
trying to
been
think
like
of
2
it.
first 4 teams that have made it to the final 4. And
But I think
You know-
if they played in the first 4, it might have been like, you know, the 8th seed Syracuse team
not
beating
necessarily.
whoever.
I mean, but the thing is that it's also some of these teams that have no business. You could argue
Yeah.
on a given year they have no business relatively being in, but they snuck in by the skin of their teeth, and then they make it to the Sweet 16, the Elite 8. Which again, that's the best part about that tournament is the teams that have no business being there are there usually. There's always those great upsets. There's always, you know, one team that nobody in their right mind saw, you know, the Loyola of Chicago or the FAU or, you know, because you're in a horrible conference. You're in a CUSA that is the worst conference out there, but somehow it's all about matchups and you find a way to go on an epic run in March Madness, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's great. It's great.
So you're all about expand it, but like
Absolutely.
limit it, right?
No,
like
I mean,
it's
don't
gotta
make it 100. That's silly.
Yeah.
I say 75, 80, maybe. You know, just to be silly about it and add some of these teams that are, like I said, they would never have a chance normally of making it, but now they make it. And again, it's good for the programs. It's good. It's more money. NCAA likes the money. It's more money, and that's the bottom line, right?
And that's what I was going to say. Like, okay, so yeah, the schools get there, but what it does is it extends the tournament, gives us some more TV
More
time.
shekels.
And
You know.
even though True TV only has March Madness and I think Impractical Jokers, they still want the March Madness stuff. So, I mean,
Practical jokers,
Yeah.
really? Wow. But no, it's great. I can't wait. I love, you know, 3 weeks of pure basketball ecstasy, right?
I think that's the thing too, right? Like that is the one place in sports where we truly get the sun shines in a dog's ass every now and then.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we get those storylines.
And we get that, and it makes it the impossible possible. Now, in the end, a Big 12 school, a ACC, a big Power 5 school's probably going to win it. Don't get your hopes up too high because really we haven't seen a mid-major win it in who knows how long. I couldn't even remember the last true mid-major that one has.
Would it have been Texas Western?
Yeah, because like NC State won in '84 over Houston, and they were still ACC, right? Back then. So that's still, you can't count them. You can't count Georgetown. You can't, you know what I mean? Even the team that wasn't. So I guess, yeah, Texas Western 66. Please tell us here.
You've given me a lot of homework because I've got to look into this.
Any mid-major besides Texas Western, besides what UTEP did in '66, has ever won an NCAA championship.
Because even Arkansas was a SEC. Maybe UNLV.
Yeah, because they were, Mountain West back then.
Is that what it was?
I think so. Yeah, that counts. 90.
Yeah.
So 90 UNLV. Yeah, I'll accept that. I'll accept the Mountain West school as a mid-major, undoubtedly. So there you go. It's been 40 years, whatever. My math is off, but I'm sure. But and like I said, I'm saying there's a chance. I mean, there was a chance for FAU last year, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, the point is you can't win it unless you get there.
Well,
right?
and then the same thing a few years back, right? Was it George Butler or James Butler, something like that, where like at the buzzer they lose to Duke.
Butler, and they went 2-2 back to back. The second time they got creamed by, I think, UConn. The first time they lost exactly. It was a buzzer. It went in and out, and that was their chance to win a championship. But Horizon Conference, right? I mean, it's like, who the hell is going to make it from? And UTEP played them that year, remember? First round, they lost to them.
We always try to find a way to bring it back to UTEP.
Well, it is what it is, right? You know, it's funny you have a bulldog on your shirt too.
Yes, I am representing my Socorro Bulldogs. OT. Yes, OT, our friend out there. The basketball season in high school sports has just ended as well, and I love hearing this. And this is, if I can, right? Like just me being proud of my alma mater for a little bit. For so long, Socorro basketball was always just one of those things that was overlooked. It was like not even a secondary or tertiary sport, whatever you could think of as far away from sports, right? And now Omar Thomas has come in here and changed the entire landscape of it to where some of the other educators that I've come across in the rest of the schools in Socorro District have been like, this Socorro team is going to be scary.
Yeah.
And I cannot wait to see what happens next year. This year was the growing pains, and they were still a really damn good team. They just couldn't close games out. I'm looking forward to what next year is going to be as you get OT that second year. How this man is not a coach at a bigger level
he
will be insane to me. But I'm just glad that he's at Socorro for the time being, because he could be legitimately a college coach.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. And the thing is that, you know, he could be a college coach in this region because remember, his wife's from here and she's an educator as well. And, you know, he wants to stay here and he wants to at least be close because he spent so many years overseas playing professionally. But yes, he definitely has the skill and he has the experience of being the director of player operations for Southern Miss under Coach Sadler, Doc Sadler, for years in Southern Miss. So yeah, he definitely has a lot of experience, and Socorro is fortunate to have a talent like him at the helm.
Okay, so let's get back in over to the college ranks. We'll go locally here with El Paso, of course. The UTEP Miners, it's been a rough season on both the men's and women's side of basketball. Even New Mexico State, like we're normally used to them being a little bit better. Obviously, they're now being in Conference USA creates a little bit of issues for them, taking that step up from the WAC. Looking at UTEP right now, I believe that they are 6th in Conference USA. They have a game today in Middle Tennessee. Then they've got 2 more home games, Louisiana Tech and Sam Houston, 13-12 overall, 12-3 at home, but they cannot win on the road. 0-8 on the road.
Yeah, 4-6 in conference play. You got to be able to win on the road. This has been one of the big problems for the basketball program is the inability to win that big road game. It ain't going to get any easier at a place like you go to Middle Tennessee State. That's a juggernaut. That's a hard place to win. I've been there twice, called 2 games there for women's basketball. It's hard to win, in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, honest to God. But this has been their downfall, is the inability to win that big game in general. I mean, they've won some decent games. They've beaten some Power 5 schools. We've seen it, right, in the last couple of years. But again, it's all about what you do in conference play. Yeah. And they've just been crappy in conference. And the fact that you can't win on the road, well, what does that say when you make it to the CUSA tournament? And if you were lucky enough to make it to the NCAA tournament, to me, and I hate to be so blunt, but you know me, I don't hold back. It's been another disappointing season.
That's what I was going to ask you. So you and I had a debate whenever this happened where Joe Golding was hired as the coach. I said I didn't think it was a good hire. The guy got hot at the right time, took Abilene Christian to one win. NCAA tournament win, right? And the question was, this guy, like he's done this, he's done that, he's done blah, 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 blah. I said he had one good season out of the decade that he had been coaching. And now, good for him. He struck gold. He's over here with UTEP. But we haven't been able to get over the hump. And I don't think this team is better than what they were a few years ago with Rodney Terry.
No.
So to me, it's like, when do we look at, and I'm not that guy, right, but when do we look at moving on?
Well, he's been here, 3 years? This is year 3, I think, for him?
I'll say 4.
I think it's 3. So I always say rule of thumb is the 5-year mark. And if by then you're not at least winning a regular season title. If you're not making postseason, considering all the postseason tournaments, it's time to part ways after 5 years.
So you'd be happy with the CBI? Is it still called the CBI?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is.
Wow.
I mean, obviously, I'm not content with. But when you're starving, a morsel of bread's better than nothing, right?
Yeah.
You know?
You know what?
Give me that bread. That's the best damn bread I've ever had in my life. Wait, you want me to play in the CBI? Okay.
You talk about disarming an argument. That's a good way to disarm an argument.
And the fans here are starving, aren't they? You know, they beat NMSU. That was the biggest thing they've done all season, right? I mean,
So what you're saying is, if UTEP sometime in the near future goes to the NIT,
yes,
wins the NIT,
Come
are
on.
we hanging that banner up
Dude,
next to Texas Western?
For sure you're hanging that banner up, man. That's a championship NIT banner. The not invited tournament banner, you still put it up because you won it.
Yeah,
It's a championship.
So it's kind of like the Lakers with the in-season tournament banner.
For sure. I mean, it's still, look, you want to.
A 17-time champion, and then you got the in-season tournament right next
And it's
to
all
it.
small and tiny. You can't even see it. I mean, but yeah, I mean, it's, look, and nowadays a title's a title, right? Any way you look at it. And a bunch of Michigas and BS championships and whatever. But if you make something, it's better than where they've been the last decade plus, right?
Okay, so there we have the new line, and I want this to happen so badly because Coach Golden, get this team to the CBI. I think if they win out, they can get there. Let's win the CBI. I will make national championship shirts.
But you know they're not going to win out. Come on.
I mean, they can.
Sure. Aren't they on the road? Did you just say they're on the road?
How many times did you doubt? How many times did you doubt those Kansas City Chiefs?
Oh, but it's the Chiefs, dude. Don't compare UTEP to the
Hey, all I'm saying is, and we mentioned it a little bit earlier.
You're right. I mean, look,
the sun shines on a dog's ass.
Can win the lottery.
Yeah.
But come on. Now.
So I mean, UTEP, you could.
I gotta look. Now you got me thinking.
UTEP, you could be that dog's ass. Is all I'm saying. Like the sun could shine on you. I want this to happen so badly because I want the national championship CBI shirts.
Oh, I bet you do. So they're at Middle tonight.
Yeah.
And even though Middle stinks, they're 10-15. That's a loss.
Back-to-back home games against Louisiana Tech and Sam Houston.
Okay, those are hopefully wins. I'm looking. So then
they're really good at home.
Yeah, and then they're undefeated at home, aren't they? So they have to play. They have to play at Jackson State. So Jackson State, that's potentially a loss. That's
road game, 0-8 on the road.
29th, and then at Liberty. So they do have what?
So 3 out of the last 5 are on the road.
Correct. So Liberty,
That's tough.
Liberty. Look, they're not going to win out, dude. They're going to lose at least one of those road games. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
I feel like you knew that's where they ended the season, and you just wanted to get that in there now.
No, I didn't. I just love that commercial. It's phenomenal.
Emu and Doug, huh? That's Brandon's favorite things. Whenever it comes to anything with college sports now. Okay, New Mexico State, they're also 5th in CUSA, just slightly above where UTEP is.
Did I hear someone call for Brando Bibu?
I was like, uh-oh. Is he bringing us more water or what? This is good. I mean, look, NMSU has a pass because their whole program was dismantled after the abomination of last season. So
Jesus.
they've
still had some more issues this year.
It's going to take a while for them to get over that. But
how are they better than UTEP right now?
Because it's NMSU. And people would rather play with a team that at least sniffed the NCAA tournament within the last few years and hasn't been there in God knows how long. But
let's just sweep that attempted murder stuff under the rug.
Hey, it happens, man. I mean, sure, your whole program was in shambles, but oh well. At least the basketball football team's doing all right,
Yes, and I guess that's what it is, right? The football team's good.
Hey, I mean, they're making bowl games. They lost Jerry Kill, unfortunately, but they're making bowl games.
Yeah, and that's what matters.
And they're going to keep. They'll get it. They'll be all right.
Get on the big TV station. You'll make a little bit of money, and things can turn around for your entire.
Win at Auburn every once in a while.
Yes.
that doesn't help. I don't know what will, right?
Probably nothing. If you can't get any rub off of winning at
come on. We'd
Auburn,
like to see UTEP win a big road game, right?
I'd like to see UTEP win a road game, not even a big one, just a singular road game, especially in basketball now.
Yeah,
because we haven't seen that this year. 0-8 on the road, and you got 3 out of your next 4 are on the road.
Yeah, they'll be fine. They're going to win out, like you said.
CBI champions.
Yes, sir.
One day I am like now.
Get shirts.
I don't want them to ever make the NCAA tournament in the next few years. I want them to go to the CBI.
And the year they were there, they made it to the finals. They lost to Oregon State. Remember?
Did we get a banner for that?
Well, I don't think so,
Like
but
runner-up for the CBI?
people are calling it the Coach Barbie Invitational.
Yeah.
And they remember they made it, and they lost to Craig Robinson, who's Michelle Obama's brother.
Mhm.
And he's, of course, his brother-in-law was the president of the U.S. It was pretty cool. Nice guy from Chicago. And anyways, long story short, they friggin' lost the championship at home.
Could have
You
had
know, they could have beaten Oregon State, man, and could have had another banner for the time. But oh well, they always find a way to goof, don't they?
all in due time. We'll get our CBI
We'll get it
championship, our
eventually.
coveted CBI
Hopefully
championship.
in our lifetime.
Oh,
Because
God.
we're in our 40s, right? You're in your 40s now. Welcome
Jesus.
to the club.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me that
Happy
this is
birthday, by the way.
that all of my teams. Thank you. That all of my teams have let me down for the better part of 30
At
years.
least you saw championships.
I did.
Some people
I
never
did.
do.
No,
Have you
100%.
seen every one of your teams win a title?
I have.
Okay, so me too.
Yeah, and I guess
Thank
that's the
God.
thing, right? Is like, and not just a title, multiple titles.
Me too. Cowboys,
So being
Bulls,
a Yankees fan,
Blackhawks, White Sox.
Yeah.
I've seen all my teams win it.
so I've got the Cowboys with 3, the Yankees with 5 in my lifetime, the Spurs with their 5, and the Golden Knights won theirs last year.
That's great.
I've been a
that's cool.
franchise-long fan of that team.
For the last 5 years they've been around. but how good
100%.
have they been, though?
That was a year I got into hockey. So why not join the new
And
team?
my beloved Blackhawks had 3 in like 8 years, whatever it was, in the 2010s.
We're spoiled, but we always want more.
Man, I'll take it, man. I'm happy to see
But-
it. White Sox will probably never win one again, but at least I saw one.
I was like, my college football team hasn't won one. So Texas Tech hasn't won one.
Yeah, I've always
They also
been
haven't won a basketball
UTEP and
championship.
Mizzou. My sister went to Mizzou, so I've been Mizzou and UTEP, and UTEP's, UTEP.
Yeah, I was gonna say you'll never.
I was gonna say,
We got the
that's
CBI.
that's a tough place. Though,
We
to
can
like
look at the
a team,
CBI.
right?
That's all I want right now
Yeah.
is the CBI
So
championship.
do I. So do I.
All right, Brandon. So we're going to go ahead and call it for now. Next week, we are hoping, we are praying we get back on the air with Fox Sports 1380. All the hiccups should be taken care of. I am not making any promises right now, but I will keep everybody updated. We are hoping to get back on there next week. It'll be a fun time. We've got Stephanie Hahn is going to be joining us there as well to talk about her upcoming match that she's got. Jennifer Hahn is going to be joining us with her coming up that day as well. And then March 1st, we're going to have our friends from the Sol Ross EP Lobos joining us to talk about their golf tournament that they've got coming up as well. So we're looking for some good stuff over on Fox Sports 1380. Brandon, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. I cannot wait to jump head first into that bottle of bourbon you got me.
Enjoy. Happy birthday. Happy 40th. Many more, my buddy.
Thank you so much. And everybody, we will see you all next week. Whether we're on the radio or not, we'll still see
It'll
you.
be nice. We'll still see you.
It'll be a fun time.
Still
hopefully.
handsome.
Not as handsome.